There is this story from the fall of 1994, and it honestly completely upends how we think about the mechanics of rock stardom.
Oh, absolutely. It's totally backwards from the usual playbook.
Yeah. Usually, when an artist is coming off just this era defining success, the next move is, a calculated spectacle.
Yeah, the PR machine goes into overdrive.
Exactly. The banners drop, you get this triumphant announcement of their next act. But in October of 1994, this musician in Seattle did the exact opposite.
He really did. He quietly booked a few days at a local studio.
Yeah, and he walks in completely alone. Over a matter of hours, he proceeds to record every single instrument for an entire album by himself.
Which is wild. The vocals, the heavy guitar riffs, the bass, the drums. I mean, all of it.
All of it. And when the sessions are over, he doesn't throw a release party. He just makes a small batch of cassette tapes.
Like literally handing them out to a few friends.
Right, and he desperately tries to stay completely anonymous. To throw people off the scent, he slaps this mysterious plural name on the tape.
Just something he found in a book about UFOs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just so anyone listening would assume it was a full group of people.
Which is, I mean, it's the absolute antithesis of a superstar launch. He was essentially hiding in plain sight.
He really was.
The name he pulled from that UFO book was Foo Fighters. And the man recording those tapes was Dave Grohl.
Wow.
Yeah, he booked 5 days at Robert Lang Studios, which was this unique facility carved into the side of a hill in Washington.
Oh, I've seen pictures of that place. It's crazy.
It's super cool. And he tracks 15 songs in that incredibly compressed window.
15 songs in 5 days by himself.
Yeah, and years later, he confessed that if he had any inkling that this solitary, grief-stricken studio experiment was going to become his actual permanent career, he would have named it literally anything else.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He later referred to Foo Fighters as the stupidest ebbing band name in the world.
That is amazing. I look at that 1994 demo tape as almost like an undercover boss situation.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right, because you have this massive, globally recognized rock star putting out a mixtape under a fake sci-fi pseudonym.
Just purely to see if the music could survive on its own merit.
Exactly. He was testing whether the songs could stand up without the immense, just suffocating weight of his famous past attached to them.
And that brings us to what we're doing here today.
Yes, it does. Today, we are exploring the unlikely 30-year evolution of Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters. We're doing a deep dive into our sources for you to figure out how a drummer, reeling from unimaginable loss, managed to build one of the most enduring rock institutions of our time.
15-time Grammy winners, by the way.
Yeah, an absolute powerhouse. And to understand that trajectory, we have to recognize that this isn't merely a chronicle of record sales and stadium tours.
No, not at all. It is a fundamental story about survival and the mechanics of reinvention.
It really examines the crushing psychological pressure of starting from zero, especially when the entire music industry is watching your every move.
Even as you're actively trying to evade their gaze. It's a study in how a person processes world-shattering grief,
Right.
by reverting to their most primal instinct, just isolating themselves in a room, plugging in an amplifier, and hitting record.
So to get to that room at Robert Lang Studios, we really need to understand the shadow Grohl was standing in. Let's look at the early 90s.
Okay, let's set the scene.
Grohl joins Nirvana in 1990. He's strapped to this rocket ship of cultural explosion. But what the public didn't see was that he was always carrying a guitar around on tour.
Yeah, he wasn't just sitting behind the kit reading a magazine.
Right. He was writing his own songs in hotel rooms, occasionally booking cheap studio time. He even released a solo cassette in 1992 called Pocket Watch.
Under the name Late, with an exclamation point.
Yes. But he deliberately kept this side of himself completely separated from his main gig. He never brought his songs to Nirvana.
The sources indicate he was just too intimidated by Kurt Cobain's songwriting to even offer his own material.
I mean, you have to put yourself in his position behind the drum kit.
Oh, totally. He is a phenomenal musician with his own creative voice, but he is watching a generational talent operate 2 feet in front of him every single night.
Cobain was actively reshaping the architecture of modern rock music.
Exactly. The level of imposter syndrome Grohl experienced must have been just paralyzing.
He loved writing, but presenting a song to the guy who wrote Smells Like Teen Spirit requires a level of audacity Grohl simply didn't possess at 23 years old.
No, who would?
Yeah.
So he compartmentalized.
Oh.
He treated Nirvana as his job and his brotherhood, and he treated his own songwriting as a private, almost secretive outlet.
Then April 1994 happens. Kurt Cobain dies. Nirvana is instantly over, and Dave Grohl is suddenly just completely untethered.
Untethered is the right word. The industry response to his free agency was wild.
Oh, the music press was swirling with rumors. There was talk he might join Pearl Jam.
Yeah, but the most tangible turning point is an offer he gets to drum for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Right, he actually plays with them on Saturday Night Live.
Which is a legendary performance, by the way. And Petty offers him the permanent job.
Taking that offer is the ultimate golden ticket. I mean, it's a guarantee of a secure, legendary, highly lucrative career where you just get to show up and play the drums.
It was the ultimate safe harbor. Joining the Heartbreakers is exactly what the music industry expected a grieving, highly skilled drummer to do.
Slide into a comfortable rhythm section and let someone else carry the burden of the spotlight.
Exactly. But the expectation itself seems to be what triggered his pivot. He had a profound moment of self-awareness during that period of mourning.
He articulated it later, right?
Yeah, he said he realized he was supposed to just join another band and be a drummer for the rest of his life. And because of that, he decided he would rather do what no one expected him to do.
Wow. So he rejected the guaranteed paycheck and chose the terrifying blank canvas.
Which leads him straight to booking those 5 days at Robert Lang Studios.
Right. And aside from a single guitar part on the track Ecstatic that was played by Greg Dooley of the Afghan Wigs, Grohl is completely alone.
Just him and the tape machine.
But here is the problem with releasing a great tape, even anonymously. Word gets out.
Oh, it always does. The cassette starts circulating among industry insiders. Major record labels start circling, creating this massive bidding war.
Suddenly, Grohl is forced to confront reality. If he wants to support this music, he cannot remain a ghost in a studio.
No, he has to assemble an actual flesh and blood band.
And building that band required navigating a minefield of emotional baggage.
Oh, absolutely. The sources detail this fascinating conversation Grohl had with Chris Novoselic, the bassist for Nirvana.
Right. They actually discussed Novoselic joining this new project.
They did. But they mutually agreed to abandon the idea because it would just feel, well, weird.
Yeah, it reveals a lot about the sonic fingerprint of a band. Grohl on drums and Novoselic on bass was the sound of Nirvana.
Exactly. If they played together under a new name, the public would inevitably view it as Nirvana 2.0.
The media would constantly compare it to their past.
Which is the exact opposite of the clean slate Grohl desperately needed to survive psychologically.
So, since he can't rely on his past, he has to scout for a new foundation. He looks at a Seattle emo band that had just broken up called Sunny Day Real Estate.
Great band, by the way.
Very influential. And he recruits their rhythm section, bassist Nate Mendel and drummer William Goldsmith.
And to flesh out the live sound, he brings in Pat Smear.
Right, who was the touring guitarist for Nirvana during their final days.
So this becomes the first official iteration of the Foo Fighters. They make their live debut in February 1995 at a tiny, sweaty club in Arcata, California.
And then the debut album drops that summer. But you know what strikes me as crazy about this?
What's that?
It's Grohl's bizarre promotional strategy. The album is out, there is massive public interest, and Grohl flat out refuses to do interviews.
He completely shuts it down.
He refuses to book large arenas. He insists on playing these small clubs. I mean, why deliberately handicap your own launch when the world is begging to give you money and attention?
Because he was actively resisting the post-Nirvana hype machine. He understood the industry's cynical math.
What do you mean by cynical math?
He knew that if they played arenas immediately, the tickets would be sold entirely on the morbid curiosity of seeing the surviving member of Nirvana standing in a microphone.
I see. The success would be attributed to the tragedy, not the merit of the new songs.
Exactly. By forcing the band into small, unglamorous clubs, he was demanding that the music earn its place organically.
It was a rigorous exercise in boundary setting, really.
It was. He wanted to prove to himself, more than anyone else, that audiences were showing up because the songs connected with them, not because of a famous ghost haunting the stage.
I see the logic in pouring a solid foundation before building the skyscraper, but that transition from a solitary studio mastermind to a democratic bandmate, it had to be brutal.
Oh, it was a very bumpy landing. And this leads directly into the notoriously grueling creation of their second album, The Color and the Shape, in 1996.
Right. They head to Bear Creek Studio in Washington with producer Gil Norton.
And this is the album that gives us massive cultural touchstones like Everlong and Monkey Wrench.
Massive songs. And the narrative at the time was that this was a true group effort. Grohl is writing the songs, but the band is collaborating on the arrangement.
That was the public story, yeah.
But beneath the surface, there's a massive fracture. Grohl is secretly agonizing over William Goldsmith's drumming.
It really highlights a severe collision between Grohl's personal loyalty to his bandmates and his uncompromising musical standards.
Because Grohl isn't just a singer who strums a guitar.
No, he's one of the most formidable rock drummers of his generation. He approaches songwriting from a deeply rhythmic perspective.
He's mentioned that he visualizes the guitar fretboard almost like a drum kit, right? Assigning rhythmic values to the strings.
Exactly. Because of this, he hears the finished, structurally perfect song in his head before the tape even starts rolling.
And Goldsmith, from what I understand, was a phenomenal, fluid drummer.
He was, but his style was looser, more atmospheric. He simply wasn't attacking the snare or playing the fills with the precise kinetic aggression that Grohl was hearing in his mind.
So the way Grohl solves this problem is genuinely shocking to me. They are nearing the end of these tense sessions at Bear Creek.
And Grohl takes the rough mixes down to a studio in Los Angeles.
Right, ostensibly to finish up some vocals and guitar overdubs. But while he is there, behind the back of his own drummer, Grohl secretly sits down at the kit and re-records almost all of Goldsmith's drum parts himself.
It's wild. When Goldsmith eventually finds out that his work has been erased and replaced, he is devastated.
He quits the band immediately, and I have to push back on the mythology of Dave Grohl here.
Go for it.
He is universally heralded as the nicest, most affable guy in rock and roll, but erasing a bandmate's tracks in secret, that is ruthless.
I won't disagree with the word ruthless.
It sounds like the behavior of a tyrant.
It was an incredibly harsh maneuver.
Yeah.
But this moment exposes the central paradox of Dave Grohl's career, especially in those early years.
How so?
Well, the nice guy persona is genuine, you know. He is deeply relational and cares about the people around him. But parallel to that, he is an exacting visionary with a militant ear for what a song requires.
Right.
The sophomore album is notoriously the graveyard where promising bands go to die. If the color and the shape failed, the Foo Fighters would have been written off as a fleeting post-grunge novelty.
They would have been a trivia question.
Exactly. Grohl recognized that the survival of the band depended entirely on the undeniable punch of those recordings.
Oh.
He made a brutal calculus.
He sacrificed personal diplomacy to ensure the survival of the art.
Yes, he protected the songs at the expense of his drummer's feelings.
Which is a heavy burden to carry, and it leaves them with a vacant drum stool just as the album is about to explode.
And the way they fill that seat is one of the great serendipitous moments in rock.
Grohl calls up Taylor Hawkins, who is currently the touring drummer for Alanis Morissette.
Keep in mind, Alanis is essentially the biggest pop star on the planet at this moment.
Right. Jagged Little Pills everywhere. Grohl calls Hawkins simply to ask if he knows any drummers who might be looking for a gig.
And Grohl is completely floored when Hawkins essentially volunteers himself.
He willingly steps away from a massive, guaranteed arena tour to join a band that is actively bleeding members.
That decision by Hawkins is a testament to the sheer magnetism of the music Grohl was writing, but also to an instant, undeniable personal chemistry.
They really hit it off.
They were kindred spirits from the moment they met. Hawkins joining wasn't just a personnel replacement, it was the acquisition of the band's missing puzzle piece.
It solidified the rhythmic core so thoroughly that Grohl could finally stop looking over his shoulder at the drum riser.
He could finally relax into his role as a frontman because he knew his mirror image was anchoring the band.
But the instability doesn't end there, does it?
Nope. Shortly after, Pat Smear leaves the band, citing total exhaustion and burnout from the constant touring.
So Grohl pivots again. He brings in Frontstall, his childhood friend and former bandmate from the hardcore punk band Scream.
On paper, it sounds like a beautiful full-circle moment.
It does. But when they retreat to Virginia to start writing their third album, there is nothing left to lose. The creative friction is just unbearable.
They just cannot sync up musically.
Hmm.
Grohl is emotionally wrecked by it, but he makes the call to fire his own childhood friend.
That's rough. By 1999, the Foo Fighters are briefly reduced to just a trio. Grohl, Mendel, and Hawkins.
They eventually bring in Chris Shiflett as a touring guitarist who, earns his place as a permanent member.
This revolving door period really illustrates a harsh reality about the alchemy of a successful rock band.
It's not enough to just be good friends, and it is not enough to just be talented players.
Right, the intersection of personalities, egos, and musical instincts has to perfectly align.
Grohl was relentlessly pruning the branches of the band to ensure the trunk grew straight.
Firing a childhood friend is deeply painful, but it underscores his fiercely protective instinct over the band's forward momentum.
He refused to let sentimentality compromise the sonic output.
But that momentum nearly drives them straight off a cliff in 2001.
Oh, this is the $1 million Demos era.
Yes, which is arguably the most fascinating existential crisis in their history. They go into a pristine studio in Los Angeles to record their fourth album, one by one.
And they spend 4 agonizing months.
They burn through an astronomical recording budget, and the result is just a sterile, lifeless disaster.
The magic is completely gone.
The infighting reaches a boiling point. So what exactly goes wrong when a band with that much talent and that much money walks into a top-tier studio?
They fell into the trap of overproduction and digital sterilization.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, they were recording in a very piecemeal way, often tracking instruments separately rather than playing together in a room.
Okay.
And when you rely too heavily on digital grids, like Pro Tools, to perfect every single beat and correct every slight variance in tempo, you strip the human soul right out of the rock and roll.
You're trying to manufacture perfection instead of capturing a performance.
Exactly. The music felt rigid. The financial pressure of the studio time, combined with the realization that the songs just weren't working, bred deep resentment among the band members.
They lost the fundamental thread of why they even enjoyed making music together.
It gets so bad that Grohl does something unprecedented. He walks away.
He leaves the sessions and goes to play drums for Queens of the Stone Age on their Songs for the Deaf album.
Which is an incredible album, but for the Foo Fighters, they are effectively on life support, on the absolute verge of permanently disbanding.
Going to Queens of the Stone Age was Grohl's desperate search for musical oxygen, right?
Yeah, he was suffocating under the weight of being the CEO, the primary songwriter, and the frontman of a failing enterprise.
By sitting behind the kit for someone else's band, he was shedding all that responsibility.
He just got to hit the drums as hard as he could and feel the raw, dangerous energy of a heavy rock band again. He needed to remember what pure, unburdened musical joy felt like.
The problem is the Foo Fighters had a massive prior commitment they couldn't just walk away from.
Right, in April 2002, they are booked to play the Coachella Festival.
And Grohl is actually doing double duty, playing with Queens of the Stone Age one day and the Foo Fighters the next.
The backstage tension is incredibly thick.
But they walk out on stage for the Foo Fighters set and something clicks. It is this massive, cathartic, aggressively triumphant performance.
They get off stage, Grohl and Hawkins have a deep heart-to-heart, and they make the collective decision that they cannot let the band die.
That specific Coachella performance really is the fulcrum on which the entire second half of their career balances.
The stage provided the antidote to the studio.
Playing live, feeding off the physical energy of a massive crowd, reminded them of their foundational essence.
The visceral experience of the music cut through all the neuroses, the financial anxiety, and the interpersonal bickering of the million-dollar demos.
It proved to them that the core connection was still potent. They just had the wrong approach to capturing it.
And what they do next is astonishing. They take those 4 months of incredibly expensive, painstakingly crafted studio recordings, and they literally throw them in the trash.
They retreat to Dave Grohl's basement studio in Virginia, and they re-record almost the entire one-by-one album in just 10 days.
10 days to capture the aggression and the urgency they felt on that Coachella stage.
And it works. The album becomes a massive hit, driven by the frantic energy of tracks like All My Life in Times Like These.
I look at this era of the band, and it mirrors a couple that survives a near divorce.
Oh, totally. They hit absolute rock bottom, the papers are drawn up, the lawyers are called.
But they have one sudden moment of clarity where they realize the love is still there, beneath all the resentment.
So instead of walking away, they decide to renew their vows. And for the Foo Fighters, renewing those vows meant literally pouring concrete.
Yes. They move to Los Angeles and build their own custom recording complex, Studio 606 West, to record their next project, the 2005 double album In Your Honor.
The physical construction of Studio 606 is a brilliant metaphor for their emotional reconstruction.
Building their own house meant they were no longer guests in the sterile, high-pressure environments of commercial studios.
And In Your Honor was a flex of their newly stabilized muscles.
Splitting the record into 2 distinct halves. One disc of blistering heavy rock and one disc of intricate, delicate acoustic arrangements was a declaration of independence from their own formula.
Grohl actually stated around this time that he wasn't sure he wanted to be trapped in an alternative rock band from the 1990s for the rest of his life.
Surviving the near collapse of One by One destroyed their final inhibitions. They stopped trying to survive their past and started actively designing a much broader future.
Let's follow that evolution because as they push into the late 2000s, they undergo a transformation from a highly successful rock band into undeniable stadium gods.
Yeah, cut to June 7, 2008. They are headlining Wembley Stadium in London.
But they aren't just playing a standard set list. They bring out Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin.
I mean, just legendary.
Yeah. They perform rock and roll with Grohl on drums and Hawkins singing, and then switch it up, performing Ramble On with Grohl singing and Hawkins behind the kit.
When the Zeppelin legends walk off, Grohl just screams into the microphone, calling it the greatest dating day of his entire life.
The symbolic weight of that collaboration is staggering. Led Zeppelin is the unquestioned gold standard of arena rock majesty.
Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones do not just hand out endorsements lightly.
No, they don't.
For them to share that stage in that specific venue was a coronation. It was the old guard of the music establishment universally recognizing the Foo Fighters as the rightful heirs to this stadium rock throne.
They were no longer the scrappy underdogs from Seattle. They were legacy royalty.
Which makes their next move so brilliantly counterintuitive.
They've just conquered the biggest stadium in the world. They have unlimited resources. They could book the most technologically advanced studio on the planet.
Instead, they pack up their gear and move into Dave Grohl's actual literal garage in the San Fernando Valley to record the 2011 album Wasting Light.
They bring in Butch Vig, the man who produced Nirvana's Nevermind.
And the most crucial detail, they record the entire album exclusively on analog tape.
No computers allowed in the garage, no Pro Tools, not even to mix or master the record.
That decision is a masterclass in calculated disruption. By 2011, digital perfection was the suffocating industry standard.
Every mistake could be fixed with a mouse click.
Exactly. By reverting to analog tape in a dusty garage, they were forcing themselves back into a corner.
When you record to tape, you are dealing with a physical magnetic ribbon.
If the drummer speeds up, you can't just digitally slide the beat back into place.
If you want to fix a mistake, you have to rewind the tape and physically play over it, which erases the previous take entirely.
Or you have to take a literal razor blade, cut the tape, and splice it to another piece.
It creates an atmosphere of immense, terrifying pressure. You have to perform flawlessly as a unit.
It injects a frantic do-or-die adrenaline into the recording process. It proves that their greatest strength wasn't their stadium polish, but the raw, unvarnished grit of their garage roots.
And it pays off. The album debuted at #1 and swept the Grammys because people could hear the physical effort in the grooves.
But as their platform expanded to this massive global scale, their intersection with real-world issues became much more complex.
It did. The sources point out a significant controversy in the year 2000 that is rarely discussed.
Right. Bassist Nate Mendel organized a Hollywood benefit concert for an organization called Alive and Well.
This was an AIDS denialist group founded by Christine Maggiore, who distributed a book claiming that HIV did not cause AIDS.
And the band actually featured a section devoted to this group on their official website, providing a massive platform for these claims.
The established scientific community, including the director of the Office of National AIDS Policy, fiercely criticized the band, calling it extraordinarily irresponsible behavior given the absolute proven scientific link between HIV and AIDS.
By 2003, all links and references to this group were quietly wiped from the band's website.
Examining that incident factually provides a necessary reality check on the immense responsibility that accompanies a global megaphone.
When a band with millions of devoted listeners amplifies a fringe, scientifically discredited movement, the real-world consequences can be severe.
The fact that the band quietly removed all traces of this endorsement a few years later suggests a subsequent recognition of the scientific consensus and an understanding of the potential harm caused by their earlier stance.
It really illustrates a steep, highly public learning curve in navigating the weight of their own influence.
Their relationship with political influence also underwent a radical evolution. In their early years, Grohl deliberately kept the band out of the political arena.
But in 2004, that changed when he discovered that George W. Bush's presidential campaign was using the song Times Like These at campaign rallies.
Grohl refused to remain passive. He actively threw his support behind John Kerry's campaign.
showing up to play acoustic sets at rallies to ensure the public understood the song's meaning aligned with his own views.
Fast forward exactly 20 years to 2024, and the playbook is even more aggressive. Donald Trump's campaign used their song My Hero without permission at a rally.
And the band immediately responded by announcing they would donate all royalties generated from that song to Kamala Harris's presidential campaign.
The contrast is fascinating. Think back to 1995, when Grohl wouldn't even agree to a magazine interview because he was so terrified of how his identity would be perceived.
Decades later, the band is actively wielding their intellectual property as a blunt instrument for political statement.
Setting aside the specific politics, it demonstrates a band that has achieved total agency over their cultural footprint.
They refuse to allow their art to be co-opted or recontextualized by figures they do not align with.
They transition from hiding from the public narrative to actively dictating how their music functions in the political sphere.
And they were incredibly adept at using theatrical absurdity to fight battles, too.
Oh, absolutely. Look at how they handled the Westboro Baptist Church, the group infamous for staging hateful anti-gay protests.
In 2011, the church was protesting outside a Foo Fighters concert in Kansas City.
Instead of ignoring them or getting drawn into an angry shouting match, the band weaponized humor.
They dressed up in these ridiculous faux trucker outfits from a promotional video they had shot, climbed onto the back of a flatbed truck, and performed a parody song right in front of the protesters.
They did it again in 2015, essentially rickrolling the church with blaring music from a moving vehicle.
Which is just a brilliant tactical deployment of joy against anger.
Right. Protesters who trade in outrage thrive on conflict. They want you to scream back at them.
The band understood that the ultimate way to deflate bigotry isn't to debate it, but to drown it out with volume and theatrical mockery.
It was a manifestation of a deeply ingrained punk rock ethos, using loud, performative absurdity to confront intolerance while simultaneously giving their own fans an unforgettable spectacle.
That dedication to the spectacle brings us to June 2015, which is the moment their legend as an unstoppable live act is permanently cemented.
They're playing a massive show in Gothenburg, Sweden. During the second song of the set, Dave Grohl missteps and plummets off the edge of the stage.
This isn't a twisted ankle. He severely breaks his leg.
He is lying on the ground. The music stops. He grabs a microphone, and he tells the stunned crowd, "I think I just broke my leg."
Paramedics carry him off. 99% of bands on Earth would cancel the tour right there.
But the rest of the band starts playing covers to kill time, and incredibly, Grohl comes back out.
He sits in a folding chair with a medic literally kneeling beside him holding his broken leg in place, and he plays the rest of the 2.5-hour concert.
Which requires an almost terrifying level of pain tolerance and adrenaline.
But the real testament to their endurance is what happened next.
Exactly, because they have a massive 20th anniversary North American tour looming. Canceling seems inevitable.
Instead, Grohl, while confined to a hospital bed and admittedly high on painkillers, sketches out a design for a custom-built, motorized throne.
It is this glorious, ridiculous contraption with guitar necks sticking out of it, flashing lights, and a seat belt.
And he proceeds to tour the entire country sitting on this mechanical throne.
What does the existence of that broken leg throne reveal about the underlying psychology of the Foo Fighters at that stage in their career?
It strips away all the glamour and reveals a fundamentally blue-collar, working-class commitment to their audience.
Their ethos is rooted in the idea of a transaction, right?
Yeah, the fans worked hard to buy a ticket, they hired the band to do a job, and the band is going to deliver that job regardless of the physical toll.
The throne was a brilliantly absurd gimmick, yes, but it was also a profound symbol of their absolute refusal to surrender their momentum.
It sent a message that the entity in the Foo Fighters was a juggernaut, larger and more resilient than the broken bones of its frontman.
But all that stamina, all that working-class resilience was completely insufficient for the darkness that was waiting for them.
Yeah. The band enters this very strange, eclectic period.
Their 10th album, Medicine at Midnight, gets shelved indefinitely because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
To keep the momentum going, they pivot to comedy. They release an album of Bee Gees covers under the moniker The Dee Gees.
And then in 2022, they star in a feature-length horror comedy called Studio 666,
where Grohl becomes possessed by a demon and hilariously murders his bandmates in a haunted mansion.
It is peak Foo Fighters. Goofy, self-aware, leaning entirely into the joke, but the tonal whiplash of what happens next is devastating.
The transition from that period of levity to absolute tragedy is one of the most jarring shifts in recent music history.
On March 25, 2022, the band is in Bogota, Colombia. They are scheduled to headline the Estéreo Picnic Festival.
But that night, Taylor Hawkins, the rhythmic engine and the spiritual center of the band, dies suddenly in his hotel room.
He was 50 years old. The factual reports from the sources are stark and sobering.
He suffered chest pain, and a toxicology report revealed 10 different substances in his system, including opioids, benzodiazepines, tricyclic antidepressants, and THC.
The festival stage, where they were supposed to be playing loud rock music, was instead transformed by the fans into a silent, heartbreaking candlelight vigil.
To process the weight of Taylor Hawkins' death, you have to look at the psychological architecture of Dave Grohl's life.
Right. He had already survived the trauma of losing his musical soulmate and frontman when Kurt Cobain died in 1994.
The entire existence of the Foo Fighters was a coping mechanism born directly out of that specific grief.
To have the universe violently repeat that history 28 years later, to lose the man he called his brother and his twin flame, is a psychological blow that is almost impossible to comprehend.
Hawkins was not just the guy who kept the beat. He was the energetic counterweight to Grohl.
His manic, infectious joy behind the kit balanced Grohl's intensity at the microphone.
His absence left a crater in the center of the band.
It felt completely insurmountable, but the band's response to the grief was staggering.
In September 2022, they organized 2 massive tribute concerts at Wembley Stadium in London and the Kia Forum in Los Angeles.
The entire royalty of the rock world showed up to play. But the defining moment, the performance that completely shattered everyone watching, happened at Wembley.
Taylor Hawkins' 16-year-old son, Shane, walked out and sat behind his father's drum kit.
He played My Hero. He played it with his dad's exact ferocity, hitting the cymbals with this wild, agonizing energy.
It was a visceral transmission of grief and love straight through the drums.
Witnessing Shane Hawkins play that song was a moment of profound collective catharsis.
It functioned as a bridge. It allowed the band and the global fan base to actively grieve the past, but it also transmitted a subtle, powerful message about the future.
The rhythm does not stop.
The physical bodies making the music may leave us, but the music itself endures. It was a devastating, necessary mechanism for healing.
And astoundingly, the band refuses to fold. In 2023, they released their 11th studio album, but here we are.
It is a raw, emotionally bleeding response to the trauma they had just survived.
They recruit Josh Freese, an absolute legend of a session drummer, to take over the monumental task of playing live, and they make a triumphant return headlining the Glastonbury Festival.
The evolution doesn't stop there, though. The sources note that by 2025, they bring in Alon Rubin, known for his incredibly precise work with 9 Inch Nails, to drum on their upcoming 2026 album, Your Favorite Toy.
Bringing in someone with Rubin's specific background is a critical creative decision.
Rubin leans heavily into industrial, mathematically precise aggression. It signals that Grohl is not simply trying to hire a Taylor Hawkins clone to nostalgically recreate the past.
He is actively allowing the chemical makeup of the band to mutate.
Adapting the sonic structure to fit the new personnel is the only viable way a band can survive a catastrophic loss and remain relevant into their 3rd decade.
And as we look at their survival, we have to acknowledge that the mythology of the infallible rock star is always an illusion.
In 2024, Grohl released a statement announcing he had fathered a child outside of his marriage.
A revelation that led to the band canceling a major festival appearance.
It serves as a stark, uncompromising reminder that these icons we elevate are fundamentally flawed, deeply complicated humans.
They have to navigate the messy, painful realities of their personal lives while living under an intense public microscope.
Acknowledging that complexity prevents us from reducing the Foo Fighters story to a sanitized, corporate fairy tale.
Their history is a dense, chaotic tapestry. It is woven with unimaginable triumphs, shattering losses, moments of brilliant strategic disruption, and profound human failings.
They have never been avatars of perfection. They are a group of individuals constantly wrestling with fame, grief, and their own humanity, trying to figure out how to keep moving forward.
When you step back and look at the sheer wingspan of this legacy, it is almost unbelievable.
It begins with a grieving 25-year-old drummer locked in a room by himself, playing every instrument just to quiet the noise in his head.
And it evolves into a global institution that somehow absorbs the loss of its own heartbeat and keeps playing.
They started as a post-grunge survival mechanism, but they forged a sound that is entirely their own.
Grohl has noted that their signature dynamic, the sharp shifts between whispering quiet and roaring loud, draws as much influence from the pristine pop melodies of ABBA as it does from the aggressive fury of hardcore punk bands like Black Flag.
That specific collision of pop sensibility and punk aggression is their architectural genius.
Ooh.
It allowed them to completely transcend the 1990s.
They didn't get trapped in the amber of the grunge era. They became the defining classic rock band of the 21st century.
But when you look at the totality of the sources, what is the defining characteristic that stands out to you?
To me, the entire story of the Foo Fighters is an exhaustive masterclass in the mechanics of resilience.
It really is.
It is a case study in what a person does on the day after the worst possible thing happens.
When faced with the destruction of Nirvana in 1994,
When faced with the disastrous, expensive failure, the $1 Million Demos in 2001,
or when literally breaking a leg on stage in 2015,
or when suffering the unimaginable loss of Taylor Hawkins in 2022, their default setting has never been to surrender.
their default response to trauma is always to build a studio, plug in the amplifiers, and play louder.
They process their existence through volume.
It is the ultimate survival mechanism.
Yeah.
And it connects perfectly back to that tiny studio in Seattle.
In October 1994, Dave Grohl walked into that room completely alone.
He hid his face behind the name Foo Fighters.
He exerted absolute dictatorial control over every single hi-hat hit, every bass note, and every vocal track on that cassette.
He built a fortress of isolation to protect his fragile creative ego from the crushing expectations of the outside world.
So here is a thought for you to carry with you as we close out this deep dive. Did Grohl's absolute dictatorial control over that very first 1994 demo tape actually forge the protective armor the Foo Fighters needed to survive 30 years of chaos, tragedy, and global fame?
That's a profound way to look at it.
Consider how the extreme measures we take purely to protect ourselves in our most terrified, vulnerable moments, the walls we construct, the obsessive control we exert when our lives feel completely out of our hands, can sometimes, against all logical odds, become the unbreakable foundation for our greatest and most enduring achievements.